Okay, you're live streaming and now I'm recording.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Yes Committee meeting, public hearing. The time is now 6:06, and we will get started. First, we want to start off with introductions, committee members here, and then online. My name is Wendy Hewlett-Betts, and I am the City of Yes Ad Hoc Committee Chair.
Rich Reynoso, committee member.
Robert Press, community committee member.
We putting down someone preaching community council.
And I started making Cynthia Rodriguez, community board member. Hi, Veronica Castro, acting chair.
And Miss, you. To me,
Christine.
Christina.
And let's start online with the introduction. Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael Cass. I'm a resident.
Ted? Ted from HPD?
Ted Weinstein, HPD, Bronx Planning.
Bernadette?
Van Ness resident.
Okay. April?
Hi, April Cardona, Chief of Staff to Councilwoman Marmorato.
Welcome. Larry? Okay. Kay?
Hi, Kate Cardona, community resident and activist.
Welcome. And Miguel? And Naomi?
Hi, this is Naomi Pemberton. I'm a community board member.
And P?
Patty.
Patty?
Hi, it's Patty Marinello, community resident.
Welcome. So we welcome you all to tonight's meeting. Has anybody registered? We didn't have anyone that registered to speak this evening.
Yes, I did.
Okay, Bernadette. Jeremy, did we have anybody else? Jeremy? Okay, so since Bernadette, no one else here was registered to speak?
Michael said he registered.
Michael, Michael, you registered. So you want to start, Michael?
Sure. Hi, my name is Michael Cass. I'm a resident in Morris Park, and I'm speaking tonight in support of City of Yes housing opportunity. Last week, NYCHA opened up Section 8 waitlist applications for the first time in 15 years. And in just 1 week, NYCHA received over 600,000 applications. It's another stark reminder of how severe our housing crisis is and why it's so important that we have an all-of-the-above approach in addressing it. And a major part of addressing the housing crisis is simply building more homes. And this is where City of Yes housing opportunity would be a big step forward, as it streamlines a complicated and far too strict zoning code to allow for a little more housing in every neighborhood in New York City. I don't think folks quite understand just how strict our zoning has become. For instance, after our neighborhood was last rezoned, city planning identified that almost a third of the buildings in our neighborhood were non-conforming based on floor area ratio alone. In other words, a significant portion of our community would be illegal to build today because they are considered too big for their lots, which includes many modest 1 or 2 family homes that have stood for decades. It doesn't make sense. Our zoning code needs to be right-sized, and we should give homeowners the freedom to do more with their own property, such as allowing ADU conversions for underutilized garages. I'm urging Bronx Community Board 11 to be a good faith partner to city planning and actually offer constructive feedback instead of rejecting the package and a knee-jerk reaction. I know some folks want to keep everything the same, but with ever increasing rents stemming from the housing shortage, we literally can't afford to. We have to reject the fear-mongering and be open to common sense changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Bernadette?
Hi, good evening. The City of Yes Housing Opportunity is a deregulatory program with the ultimate goal of creating massive increases in density in currently low-density neighborhoods. All of the proposals in this 1,386-page package will do serious damage to all neighborhoods throughout the city. While Manhattan will be least affected, all other boroughs will be greatly affected. Bronx Community Board 11 is 2/3 comprised of 1 and 2 family homes and multifamily homes. It will be greatly affected by this housing proposal if voted on as a yes. To note a few proposals out of the 15, town center zonings would allow multiple floors of apartments on top of every commercial building in R1 to R5 zones with no parking requirements and taking away the ability for the community and council members to decide if development is appropriate by removing the Euler process. Transit-oriented development will allow new 2 to 3 story apartment buildings on lots of 1/8 of an acre within half-mile of subway or rail stations described as missing middle housing. Every property 5,000 square foot or larger on a wide street and every corner on a narrow street, including in multiple smaller properties purchased by a developer and assembled to meet 5,000 square foot minimum would be eligible. And small and shared housing reintroduces housing with shared kitchens or other common facilities. The goal is to recreate SROs, single room occupancy dwellings, across the city. If adopted, this proposal will take us back to the 19th century. I urge Bronx Community Board 11 to vote a firm no, even if you like one or more of the proposals. As we have learned, any yes with conditions is considered a yes, period. This package must be rejected in full. Ask them to not make it a broad stroke. Go back to the drawing board and let's see what each community wants, not a broad stroke as is proposed in this 15 proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. Do we have any more speakers? We only had 2 that registered online.
Is 1 or 2 that are trying to get on and can't. They're in the waiting room, they're telling me.
Would have popped up.
I don't.
Yeah, hit the dots.
If you're not a co-host, you probably won't be able to get on.
That's true.
I'll reach out to Jeremy.
Okay. Diane?
Yes, I will just read from the racial equity report, the executive summary. I think that the community board needs to take into account the big picture and the larger situation that the entire city faces, including our neighborhoods. And I'm in support of City of Yes Housing Opportunity with maybe some modifications. And I don't see it as a broad-based change to low density neighborhoods. I don't see how people characterize it that way. The 2023 housing vacancy survey's initial findings show that citywide rental vacancy rate is a historic low, 1.4%. For apartments renting at the lowest rent levels or less than 1,100, the vacancy rate is 0.39%. The plan highlights how Black and Hispanic New Yorkers are far more likely to experience poor housing conditions and discrimination during their housing search process. The 2023 study proves that these racial disparities continue to be present. A larger share of renter households headed by Black or Hispanic New Yorkers reported housing maintenance issues in comparison to households headed by a white or Asian New Yorker. White affluent renters have more access to more housing choices than other renter households, as half of all the renters who moved into a different apartment between 2021 and 2023 were white and had a household income greater than $100,000. What this means is that people are trapped in inadequate apartments and cannot move. The racial wealth gap further limits housing choices available to Black and Hispanic households who have median household incomes of $54,000 and $49,000, far lower than the median household income of $103,000 of white households or $75,000 for Asian households. New York City's housing shortage severely limits access to quality housing for low-income New Yorkers and New Yorkers of color. And that's from the Racial Equity Report for the City of Housing Plan. And I think that if people are opposing the plan, they have to provide answers to deal with this. It's not enough just to say, I don't like the plan. People have to address these documented disparities that affect our area as much as any other part of New York City. Thanks.
Thank you, Diana. Anyone else would like to speak? You said there were 2 more people.
Yeah, Jerry, check. The meeting isn't locked. There shouldn't be a waiting room. They should be able to just come right in.
You see.
It's Kate Cardona. May I speak?
Yes, Kay, go ahead.
Sorry, my voice is somewhat back from last week. Of all the hearings that I've attended and all the things that I've seen and read, I haven't seen anything that addresses what those rents are going to be like with any of these new buildings or new apartments. I haven't seen anything that says what the rents are going to be like. Are they going to be less to make it more affordable for the more struggling folks in terms of equity, or are they going to be like the same standard that we're dealing with now? And don't forget, the Rent Guidelines Board hasn't even voted yet. That'll be towards the end of the month on what a 1-year and 2-year leases are going to look like. Is there any information that you guys would be privy to, or anyone else attending this meeting, that states what the rents are going to look like in any of the proposed new properties? And thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Is there anyone else?
Yes, I would like to speak.
What is your name?
Rochelle Mandina. I registered, but I don't know if it is going that way.
Okay, go ahead, Rochelle.
Yes, actually a follow-up to the last speaker, I think it was Kay Cardona. The rents in our neighborhood that we're in, that I live in Community Board 11 in Morris Park. If you go to rent an apartment now, the rents are much lower than what the proposed rents are under affordable housing. So I'm not sure how, how that's included as helping people. I mean, other than some people will get, aid for their rents, but as far as people that are going to be paying their full rent, it's not going to be lower, it's going to be higher. And I have a few questions. I'm going to just run through them. One is we've been to many of these meetings, and I think City of Yes passed, but I'm just wondering if any of the requests that we've made have been taken into consideration, because it seems like I haven't seen anything that shows that. The infrastructure, the parking, the sewage. These are all big issues. The buildings that are going to be built, the traffic nightmare that's going to happen from this already so congested area over around Eastchester Road, and they've taken all the lanes away. So now how people, there's schools all over the place, that causes another traffic jam. So all of these things are huge issues. We have flooding. They do roads in this neighborhood, and like they don't even last 1 year. I want to know, like, who's doing the construction? Are they going to be the same terrible construction people that are working in this city now that a road can't even, there's holes, like sinkholes appear in this neighborhood all the time. You know, it's a disaster here already. And you're gonna, I just want to know if any of these things are gonna be addressed, because it doesn't seem like they have been addressed. You know, so those are my questions. There's lots of things that I brought up, but I'm sorry, but these are all the things that have still not been answered. So thank you for listening.
I appreciate that. We appreciate that, Rochelle. Patty?
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry, I'm commuting, so I just jotted something quick down. The City of Yes was created without regard for any of the communities impacted. We're asking, we need middle schools, we need parking mandates, we need updated sewer systems, we need police and firefighters. Zoning laws were put in place. Asking Community Board 11 to vote no, as if we vote yes with conditions, it will be considered a yes. Manhattan is not the Bronx. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Patty. Is there anyone else online? No? Anyone here would like to say?
Is he gonna speak?
Nate.
Okay,
Nate, do
Nate.
you have anything as a rep?
Yeah.
And just state where you.
Or maybe
you're
answer some
from.
questions if they have.
Yeah, sure. I can introduce myself first.
Yep.
My name's Nate Heffron. I'm a senior planner with the Department of City Planning at the Bronx office. And just here to sit in, just observe like the hearing and your thoughts and comments and questions. So I know there were some questions. I can go ahead and answer those. So it seems like I can kind of bundle these together. So some questions around the impacts of the plan and, you know, providing like the additional infrastructure that would be needed. So and we did a full environmental impact statement for this, and it's took a new approach that looks at it the impacts, because this is a citywide text amendment that'll affect the entire city. So used a special methodology to look at that. And it will be used in the future to guide the city's capital planning moving forward into the future. So, you know, those questions on, you know, infrastructure, like impacts to the sewers, impacts to schools, things of that nature, they're very good comments, very good question. And that's this environmental impact statement will help if this text amendment passes, that will help guide where the city's capital infrastructure investments will happen into the future. Again, and I thank everyone for your very, very thoughtful comments and questions on this, and your discussion and your attention to this so far. Do appreciate it. But the other question on whether the comments received so far have been taken into account, I can say not yet. We're still in the public review process for this, the 60-day community board review window. So we are in this listening phase, collecting all these comments and taking notes today too. But once this reaches the process, it'll go to the city planning commission, and then it'll go to the city council for a vote. And that's when there will be some discussion on, you know, what things will be taken into account, what will make it into the final proposal versus what will. So yeah, and we just had our previous text amendment, the City of Economic Opportunity, just passed the city council last week. And that text amendment had gone through that process of discussing what will make it into the final proposal. So there was a lot of discussion on it. Some things made it into the final proposal, some things got taken out, but and can expect the same thing to happen again for this. So no, nothing has changed as of yet, but there will be some discussion and dialogue on that once this reaches that part of the process. And yes, we are bringing the community board's comments into account when making those decisions. So these comments, your questions that you're bringing up, are being heard by the city planning commission and the city council too.
For the City of Yes Economic Opportunity, this community board sent in, I believe, 19 comments. How many have been answered?
I'm not sure because I'm not sure which comments that.
So if
you
you're
had
not sure
submitted.
that it became, that yes became a no since you didn't answer.
So yeah, I'm not sure what comments you had. So some of them may have been incorporated, some may have not, but I'm not sure what questions you had or which
The
proposal.
next point is, okay, I'm very familiar with the city water system and the city sewer system. We have how many overflow lines? Because the Glen Island is where our water treatment plant is. And that cannot handle it. So there are 2 overflow pipes, which still can't handle it. There's flooding. How is this EIS addressing that?
Like I said, the EIS took a look at the impacts by district by district. So I'm not sure specifically for like Community Board 11 for that particular outflow, but if it's found that there would be an impact, then that would essentially be prioritized for future capital investment.
Because
down the line.
Community Board 11 is sitting on part of Westchester Creek. That could be accounting for some of the sinkholes somewhere. Then there is other areas, for instance, in Riverdale, there's sinkholes, and throughout the Bronx, there are sinkholes. Okay, while part of this is rock, not all of it is. Some of it is filled in. Has the city of Yes accounted for the parts that were filled in? No. Right? Here we have houses that are getting flooded. Currently, right now, what's going to happen when more buildings go up and more sewerage is coming out and more people? It's going to get worse, the flooding, correct?
So what I'm gonna say is, we, the committee, the ad hoc committee, we do need to meet again. And since from the previous meeting that we had and hearing from the public, we do need to come up with some recommendation.
Yeah.
And that officially come from the ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
And that we will submit it to, or present it to the full board for approval with a letter to go to city planning. And
When do you need our vote by? What
It'd be
date?
by the city planning's public hearing, which is June 10th, I believe.
You need our vote by June 10th.
by,
Yeah, by the letter by that.
Today's-
by today?
No, 1 month.
Oh, July.
July.
Okay.
Okay, July.
Yeah.
Okay, July.
July.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, that's
That's
fine.
That's perfect. Okay, so yeah, so we will definitely meet and have recommendations formally submitted to the full board and then submit a letter to city planning, which we would expect or ask for a follow-up in writing, at least so that we know some of our issues or concerns have been addressed. Patty, did you have an additional question?
No, I'm sorry, I just never took my hand down.
Okay, it's okay.
Sorry, I'll take it down.
Can I just
Go ahead.
another comment or
Go ahead.
two? Now, I don't know if he's your boss or worker, Paul said that the city of Yes was incorporated into Metro North rezoning. And that the 20% bump up was included. And that's why it went from 6,000 units of housing to 7,500. Now, all but 400 units of that housing is in Community Board 11, which means you're adding 7,100 units of housing with that 20% bump up. Don't you think that's a little excess for one community board to handle?
That's part of a separate neighborhood study and project. I believe we've spoken to you about that. If
I'm just saying,
if you want to
it's a
follow up
question.
separately on
I'm
that,
asking,
then
so you're not going to give me an answer then?
no, I defer to
You defer.
the.
And Ted Weinstein said that a project that this community board already approved for 333 units is going to be 400 units because of the 20% bump up, which is what it is. All right, so you're going behind this community board's back and increasing the size of the buildings that they've approved.
Well,
Let's ask
I
Ted since
think
he's here.
Ted should answer
I want to
that.
clarify for the record, because
Yeah.
I'm tired of this, to be honest.
Go ahead, Ted.
Keep it above.
Well, first of all, the 333 units, which is a specific project, the proposal from the developer has increased since then. That has nothing to do with either the Morris Park, the Metro North rezoning or the City of Yes proposals. It's just because that developer decided that he can do more than he originally was proposing, which is
And
a
Ted-
totally separate issue, totally separate. One comment I would like to make is because someone did ask about what would the rents be like in the buildings that might be built here. And the answer to that really is that almost all, with one exception really, all of the other proposals in the city of Yes, and you know, there's a worksheet, which I know you have, that breaks it all down into 15 different pieces that you can say yes or no for each one of them. So most of them don't talk at all about what the rents might be or might not be. There is one, it's the UAP, the Universal Affordability Preference. That's the 20% that's been mentioned. And that really replaces an existing program. So it's not much different from what already exists now. And what that says is that if a developer wants to, he can apply to get a bonus of floor area of as much as 20% on the condition that all of those additional units must be permanently affordable. But all of the other proposals, you know, if somebody decides to build 2 floors on top of single story taxpayers, if somebody wants to do the ADU to add, you know, to a 2-family house, make it like a 3-family, none of those mention or talk at all about rent levels because they're not. They're zoning matters.
Right.
Now, if somebody wanted to make use of some of these programs, particularly the higher density ones, and again, that's another point. The densities, the zoning densities, the zonings are not changing. I know there's been some misinformation going around that the R1s and R2s and some of the others are being done away with. That's just not true. And so, in fact, some of the proposals only apply, the ADUs, for example, only apply to those low density zones. The UAPs only are going to apply to the higher density zones. So, but in that case, so there will be, for the additional units that the developer can get, they have to be permanently affordable on an average of 60% of the area median income. And so that's significantly better than some of the other programs that have existed in the past. But if somebody wants to, let's say, buy a property somewhere in your district, for example, and the zoning, let's say it's already an R7 or an R8, and that allows them to build a certain height, if they're not using city funding, that's not a point. If there's city funding, we have control over what gets built. But if they're not going to use city funding and they just want to take advantage and they want to do it as per zoning, they can go ahead and do that and they can charge for rents whatever they want. But again, they're not getting city funding and they're not getting that bonus. But if somebody wants city funding and wants the bonus, then they have to provide some amount of affordable housing.
So I just want to say this. I think, you know, with all the City of Yes and the zoning issues, we have to understand that within development, there are many layers. Okay, and the first layer is the zoning, right? So rental conversations wouldn't happen at this level, right? So again, when I talked about life after, you know, resources, the administration, someone mentioned the police department, fire department, that's the level of the conversation when we talk about rents, right? Because that's my biggest concern, resources, right? When you add more units of housing, then we get into the conversation about schools, right? Grocery stores, things of that nature to make sure that we are, you know, providing the necessary resources to the community. So let's not mix apples and oranges together. Let's just keep it on the level of this is zoning. I do think that the community board, which would be housing, right? The housing committee needs to start the conversation early, right? So they need to pick it up from the zoning base right now, talking to program structure and, you know, supportive housing, affordable housing, all the different key components, going through HPD's list of programs, because a lot of these developers will try to fit whatever said property into these programs, right, to maximize the rents. Others who do not want to deal with the city, like Ted said, have the money, have the resources to build. And they're coming because they're already here. So I don't want us to get caught up in the weeds, right? Zoning is important, but don't get caught up in that. It's the other things, the other questions that need to be addressed. Oral, I know you came in. Do you have something to say?
No,
before we wrap up?
No, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I know Bob mentioned things about any of the modifications to the zoning amendment or clarifications of some of the issues that were brought up at meetings. Were they answered? Yeah, they sent them out to us. And this is a city planning chair letter, economic opportunity approved modification to reflect community board feedback. So there was some feedback done, and it was a letter sent to us. It's the entire breakdown of what transpired was sent to us. I was reading through the list of modification, which was good. They did address issues such as having a commercial unit above a second story. They did address those issues and some of the things that they're going to add to the zoning to make those modifications work for community board. And we when we have our meeting, I'll print it out and we can go through those changes, the list of modifications to it. And he's right about the additional housing that you brought up. There's a lot of issues that were answered, so some of your concerns were done. We can discuss that more when we print out this letter. I don't know if anyone got the letter. I was reading through it about the different commercial changes to it. But I think we just need to look through that, and then if we need to add comments to some of the already answered issues that are in that letter, we can do that. Right?
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Naomi, you had your hand up?
Yes, I do agree with you that we don't want to do apples to oranges, but I do agree with Bob in terms of just bringing it up to the committee to bringing it out into the open in terms of us really making sure that we're stating our concerns with zoning, that we're stating our concerns in terms of development. We want to make sure that we're protecting our district, and I just want the committee to know that.
That's fair. And you're right, but let's also remember that private developers don't necessarily have to come to the community board. So we have to remember that, and that's why we have to keep our ears open so that we can hopefully, request the change.
Yep.
Right? So that when development is happening in our neighborhood, no matter private or city, that they at least come and just present what they have in store, their plan, so that we know and we're aware.
Usually private developers don't have to come to us if they're building as of right.
Right.
Right, but if they're not building as of right, I think they have to go through.
They go through the
a few
regular
steps,
right.
to do that, right?
Yeah, if they're seeking like a rezoning, for example, then that would, of course, they have to file an application with Department of City Planning, go to the City Planning Commission.
BSA too.
Yeah, and the ULURP process, so then it would have to come to.
And it has to.
At that, yeah.
Right.
So the issue is, now with City of Yes, all the different changes, is it possible to have private developers come to us anyway, even if they're as of right, or maybe you can ask one of them if that's possible, if it affects our community?
I think the chair would have to, so Veronica would have to formally make a request that she would want that for CB11. And it would have to go through all the different agencies and trickle up to the BP. And everyone would have to be on board with that, because that changes the whole dynamic.
Or wouldn't that have to be the board, the full board?
The full board would have to vote on it, right?
You could put that on the agenda at leadership,
Mhm.
and we could bring it up to the full board, and the full board agrees to it, then I can make the recommendation, and I can make the request. Or if we have to
I
make
think
sure
if
the
it
full
affects the
board's on board.
community, even though yes, that may be as of right, but there may be things in there that we can ask them to improve on.
Right.
Parking or whatever, or address issues that we're concerned about, as Bob brought up about how is the street going to be modified to capture all the new hard space that's now putting in more water onto the streets, and will our sewer system be able to handle all that? Because when you're building a brand new building, you're changing some green space into hard space, maybe depending on where or how large a building is, and that kind of affects the sewer line system, especially if you're building taller buildings. Now you're adding more more waste to our existing system? Are they going to modify some of those things? Maybe in the plans to modify those things to make it more, amenable to what the changes are going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly something you can include in the letter to with that
Yeah.
does come from the community,
Yeah.
where that's something
Yeah.
where, we would have to, even for as of right development, that would be a good comment to include in the.
We'll include that in our recommendation, and then when we present to the full board, we'll ask for that so that the chair can send a formal request. Bernadette, and then we're gonna wind down.
Yes, I just wanted to add some information with regards to developers and specific requests to come to the community board. I have personally gotten phone numbers of developers, and I'll just say in two different instances, one being that there is no legislation in place, whether it be city or state, that says that developers have to comply with requests for any developments that are in their respective, community boards. So there's no legislation. The only thing that cross paths with community boards are group homes and shelters. So they do have to come before the board. But when it comes to developers, there is no firm legislation, city or state, that says that they have to comply to a request from the community board. Now, in another situation, in Van Ness, we spoke directly to another developer, and that developer did come to a round table. So that it's a hit or a miss. So like the other developer, he lived in Queens. He want nothing to do with hearing any kind of feedback, etc. And there was requests for months, and there was never any kind of meeting set up. Anyway, I just wanted to give that out. It would be great if there was legislation that balanced it out as respect to the communities, but as of yet, we don't have that.
Okay, Diana, and then April.
Yes, I just had a question for maybe the city planning representative. Following on from what Bernadette said, one of the things that I'm very confused about, and I hear different things about, is that City of Yes will remove, if it's passed, will remove all control from the community boards. And what I don't understand fully is the difference between ULURP processes, which will still continue after City of Yes for certain projects, and City of Yes as a text amendment, taking away the community board control. So if somebody could really explain that clearly, I think that would be very helpful to all of us.
All right. Let me try to paraphrase your question so I understand it correctly. So I want to understand like the difference between what would happen with this text amendment versus how the process would look for a typical ULURP application, right?
Yes, because people are saying that, one critique of City of Yes, especially for housing opportunity, is that it removes community board control and there won't be any more ULURP processes. But I thought that ULURP would still exist if you want to change the zoning designation of a area that you want to build in.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. So the ULURP process itself will not be going away. It's
a mandate.
Yeah, and that's required. It's a complete chart. That's
Finish on the mandate.
yeah. That's
So
not,
why are people saying that the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity is
We're saying
taking
that-
away community board control?
Oh,
Three times.
Communities.
So can I
So we're at-
interject for a minute? And I think that's why meetings like this are important.
Yeah.
Right, so that you can get it from the horse's mouth. Because even ULURP can't go anywhere. That's a division that has to stay as long as there's development going on in a city, that it's chartered. it can't go anywhere. You're talking about hundreds of people losing their jobs and, you know, that just, because if you go city planning, all of the different branches that deal with development, it would just be a hot mess. So that can't happen. But that's why it's important to come to these meetings, to invite folks to the table, to have these conversations. So now we can take it back to the community and say, no, you're wrong. This is an entity that's here to stay.
So, yeah, and thank you for that too. So because Euler said it's required when you want to seek a change in like that zoning district. So if you want to go like up or down in that district from say like an R4 to like an R6 or 7 or something like that, or go from like an R5 to an R3, whatever direction you want to go in. But this text amendment makes small changes to like each of the districts so that each district will be the same type of district. So like a lot of, Morris Park is like in these like R3 type of districts that allow for like 2-family houses. It'll still be a 2-family house R3 district, but it just makes these changes so that it provides a little bit more flexibility so that if you had a vacant lot that's just sitting there, it would be very difficult to build an actual 2-family house on that lot with the way that the zoning is today. But this is a proposal that's saying that vacant lot, after this would pass, it would say that vacant lot is going to turn into a 6-story building or a 12-story building. That's not what would happen. This would help that vacant lot become a 2-family house in this 2-family district.
Rich, the text amendment that was sent, that was 1,000 pages, was it 1,000?
Yeah, that was 200.
Yeah.
Why is it so much?
Could it be minimized? to just
No, I asked.
focus on- Yeah.
Do you have 180, do you, 60, so do you have a summary of changes? 160.
For this particular district?
I don't.
Like 14.
Oh,
Shorter like summary changes.
Right,
I think
yeah.
the materials that we provide
Size.
are probably like the best summary of the changes,
Okay.
but the annotated text itself, it has comments in the side that shows like which change. So it'll have like strength.
I saw that.
text. I know it's a lot.
It's a lot, it's a lot to go through. April, I'm sorry, you got a comment? I'm sorry, Diana. April?
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm in commute, but I just wanted to voice something from the councilwoman. We're really here to just listen. So we're not, putting anything out there, but I do encourage everyone. I know there are some questions that may not be answered today. We're in talks with all the different agencies from DP, talking about the sewer infrastructure, to DSNY, to NYPD, to city planning and land use. So please reach out to our office if you want to put anything in writing. We highly encourage from both sides of the aisle. I know this is a very it's a topic that people are very opinionated on. So please, we really encourage everything. We want to hear the concerns from all sides. And again, we're your microphone in City Hall. So please just submit any letters you have, any questions, concerns. And that's really it. I didn't want to take up more time, but just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, but that's good to know that you guys are in contact with, in communication rather with the other agencies.
Whose office is that? CO.
Councilwoman Marmorato.
She's the chief of staff for.
Okay. I don't know if anyone wants me to explain text amendment change. No, I'm fine.
No, I'm fine. It was just a lot.
It was just so long.
Yeah.
I don't need you.
It's a lot.
I understand that. It's like,
The
okay.
1,000 pages.
Yeah, I was expecting 100 pages, that's why. That's what I'd be limited. 260.
Okay, so I want to wind this down. We said we were only going to go for an hour, so we'll take the last 3 comments, and then we will end. Diana, I'm gonna call you last, okay? Let me get Bernadette, Naomi, and then I'll come back to you.
Yes.
And Ethan, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, I just want to point out again, with regards to the town center zoning, to look into more of the detail of that, because in every commercial overlay in R1 to R5 zones, it's going to dramatically increase the FAR and density with no parking requirements as of right, and taking away the ability for the community and council member to decide whether the development is appropriate by removing the ULURP process. So that is an overview of the detail of that text amendment. So if this is not true, then somebody needs to look into this more deeply, because these are statements of details of each one of the proposals. This specific proposal does mean that that is going to be a proponent of that town center zoning. So if that is part of it, there needs to be a question about how important community input is, and for the city council members to have a say as part of the community input. And if any of the proposals take away that, then that is a very big red flag. So I just think that needs to be looked at under a microscope. Thank you.
No, can you answer that?
Yeah, sure. So
For the record.
So when with the town center proposals, that because it is so difficult to build now, the like housing on top of commercial in these like commercial districts in the low density districts. So if like today, without with the zoning that's in place today, it would require a land use action. It would require a change in zoning to allow for something like that to happen. So this would allow these changes to, and then if something like that were to happen, then a developer would probably come in and request a whole lot more than would be probably appropriate for a particular location to like make it worth going through that process. And then what ends up happening is that nothing ends up getting developed, or it's just like one story of commercial and no housing ends up getting built. The housing that we need so badly now. So this would just allow for like that smaller amount of housing to be built like as of right, instead of requiring either a rezoning that would introduce a more inappropriate level of housing in some of these areas, or like no housing at all.
I'm just going to piggyback. This is why land use committee is very important, right? Because when development comes into a neighborhood, I always talk about the package, right? And it's the package of information regarding zoning, what's being proposed on the actual site. And all of that would be answered within those documents. And this is why land use needs to be on top of the next level along with housing.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan raises a really good point, because, and I see where the misunderstanding is now. I wasn't thinking about this before, but you're right. If you have a commercial zone where commercial zone is limited to a one-story, like here, right? You can't go up above because it's a commercial or wherever it is. But then the text amendment allows a developer to kind of bypass the ULURP process, because he has to change, because for example, if you're in a C1 district, right? And the C1 district says one-story buildings, that's it. But then now the text amendment you can't now for a contractor to say, you know what, this, because of the way it's positioned, the way it is, it's fit for a 6-story building here. But then only the C4 or C5 allows that. So he has to go through the whole process of changing that zoning, almost like a spot zoning, to allow for him to build a taller building. So with the text amendment change, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that he doesn't have to do that now. Now the text amendment change allows him to build on top of that zoning area that was once limited to, it kind of handcuffed the developer to having to go through a whole process of going to ULURP and community board and all this whole steps. Now with the text amendment changes, and which kind of allows him to kind of make it easier for him to build a taller building, whether it's a 4-story building or whatever it is, on this once limited to a 1-story commercial space, he can now do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. It's but look, with most of these like commercial districts, they're called like commercial overlay. So they have the residential district that's, you know, the main district, and then the commercial that like kind of like sits on top of it, which provides that like ground floor like commercial. So the amount of housing that would be possible would be depend on what that underlying residential district is. So like if it's like you take like Morris Park Ave, like for example, I think if I remember off the top of my head, it's like R4, so it's like it would only allow, you know, that level of housing for like that R4, not like R8 where you could just all of a sudden see, you know, 15-story buildings on the commercial corridor on top of the commercial. So that wouldn't happen.
Right, that won't happen, but it would allow him to do something that before he couldn't do because it would have to go through the change of getting that zoning change to build a taller building. So it limit because of the text amendment is going to limit. So you have to read carefully into the text amendment to see what that text amendment change allows him to do now with the change versus what he could do prior. It's not really changing the zone, like he's saying, because it's not changing to a C8, but now the change is being, if it's in C1 is being modified for them to do something that they couldn't do before, like building a taller building. And that kind of, because he would have to go through a ULURP process to get a taller building, he doesn't have yet. So that's when people may say, yeah, now he doesn't have to go through the ULURP process because now the text amendment change allows him to build a taller structure on a once limited site. So
which is just to piggyback why I asked for a minimized text amendment so that we can actually go through it as to what is for our district, because the letter that we would want to come from the chair must include some of those, right? Because we need to be able to look at it and figure out, you know, maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and go through all the tricks, right? And then make sure that we have that down, we've identified it. I mean, we're not gonna get it all, but at least we have some, and to outline, to say, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go here, because we've already identified it. Naomi?
Yes. Thank you, Bernadette, for bringing that up, and Orville for explaining it even further. And it was going to actually go into my point of if things like this are occurring or it's going to happen, what recourse do we as a community have? And it concerns me that a lot of people on this call have a lot of concerns on the way that the city is handling this. And I really want to just bring up to you who is a representative to, you know, really consider that, you know, we need recourse. We need to make sure that there's lines of communication open. We need to make sure that the community is heard, because in the example that Orville is stating, you know, that can change the whole outlook on someone's window. Which can be, detrimental to that person. So I'm just saying, I just want to bring that to you just to consider that. I'm not asking any questions, but I would like you to I would really like the city of Yes to consider the community's voice and, really think of a really good way for us to be able to say no to things that should not be occurring. I understand that certain things, yes, we want to open up to business. We want economic development. I'm all for that. But I just want to make sure that you're hearing us, that there are concerns and that there should be recourse. And I heard that that Councilwoman Maramato's office is, saying, hey, you can funnel things through us. But I want to also call out all our legislators for our district to also hear us. We have some concerns and we want to make sure that you are hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana and then Ephraim.
Sure. About the text amendment being 1,000 pages, when I looked at it, I put this in the chat as well. It really is literally amending the existing text, which is very jargony, legalistic, and in some places they've just crossed out a whole page. So some of the 1,000 pages are just crossed out pages. They couldn't start from scratch and write something more direct and simple and easier to understand, they're actually amending the existing text, which makes it very unwieldy. And is why we have to deal with the summaries. But also further to what Bernadette and Naomi were saying, in our area, we're R6, I believe. And for a long time, it's just been a mix of 6th-floor apartment buildings and a lot of single and two-family homes. But recently, a lot of the homeowners are selling to developers who are all building 6-story apartment buildings. You know, we've had a whole block where before it was mainly 1 and 2 family homes, and now it's mainly 6-story buildings. And that kind of concentration does change the feel of the neighborhood, the infrastructure needs. So, you know, not every property block is going to be owned, going to be changed according to the City of Yes housing opportunity, but maybe there could be some sort of cap, like if the development reaches a certain percentage of the properties in an area, then there's a further consideration. Because to build to the max allowed by the zoning in a whole area does change it significantly. And that usually doesn't happen, but it can. So.
Thank you.
I just want to say something about the R6 zone. In case you don't know, Diana, R6
Robert,
zoning,
please don't.
R6 zoning could go up.
I
stories.
read a lot, I know a lot.
I was with Mayor.
There's different kinds of R6 zoning, I understand.
Continue.
All right, guys.
I was with Mayor de Blasio and Speaker, before, the first speaker, what's her name? No, before. Verito. When Mayor de Blasio came in and they moved R6 from 6 stories to 8 stories. And then it was said that if you put in 25% affordable housing, you could then go up 2 more stories. And if you then put in a community facility, which could be anything, basically for the community, a school, doctor's offices, or even a homeless shelter, believe it or not, that you go up 2 more stories. So it can go to 12 stories in an R6. Okay, and that's why you're hearing 15 and 20 stories in R7 and R8s.
Okay. Ephraim, I'm sorry. Ephraim.
Yes, so I want to reiterate to everyone that the city in its history, once things change, you're not going to get it to change back. You know, this is a very trying time. And sometimes, you know, I could tell you the story as a kid, 1972, the Cross Bronx Expressway, they went in there and they did it. And as I got older, I realized the communities that were destroyed because the city went in and a man by the name of Robert Moses said, no, I'm not going to go down Vice Avenue. You know, that part where they had that Potomac Park, they wanted to put the roadway there so they could keep and the city said no. So if anybody thinks that you're going to get it from top down and get all the things that you need, it's just not going to happen. You fight as a community. This is more telling because of what recently happened over that congestive pricing is that when people stick together and fight, you will see pushback. It may not always happen. We need schools. We need environmental things done here, and more people means more sewage. We also need parking because there isn't going to be, I believe, a congested pricing. It's going to be counterproductive to the city, but we have to take care of this community. There is going to be a lot of building on Eastchester Road. You don't need it on Morris Park. Why would you stack it? Because you're going to get 6-story buildings. Believe it or not, as of right, it'll happen. What Barbara just said, including with the Metro North, and they want to include the 20% housing, this will be a disaster. So we have to think small. Maybe people might say, well, we're little ants, but you know what ants can do when they stick together? They can accomplish anything. because that's what they're protecting. So this community cannot just go with the wayside. The mayors come, mayors go. City planning people are there because they do what the mayor and the big shots say. So let's think before we say yes. And they don't want to hear anything from you. So that's all.
I thank you. I thank you, everyone, who spoke. Definitely, we heard, all of the issues, and, you know, we know what we need to do. Our committee will meet again to
Probably
just,
next week, next Friday.
yeah, to go through what we discussed here, what was discussed at the last meeting, the text amendment, so that we can come up with some good recommendations, so that we can submit that formally to the board, and then, assist our chair with writing a letter on our behalf.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would ask Wendy, if you could reach out to the chair of housing,
Yes.
Hazel, speak with her about your recommendation that they take up the next step of this.
Okay.
See if she wants to have a joint meeting so that you all can get on the same page and help, let her know what it is that you're looking for her to do on her end of it.
Sure.
So you can talk to her first offline between you and her, and then decide if you want to have a joint meeting together. I think that would be helpful to make sure that the steps that need to be taken are taken.
Okay,
Okay.
we could do that. We definitely could do that. So I thank you all. The time is now 7:07, and we will end this evening's meeting. Thank you again for all those who spoke. We really appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you for joining.
Good night.
All right.